lest his suffering all be in vain. I will weep no more for the cross that he bore. I will glory in the cross, in the cross, in the cross, be my glory ever. I will weep no more for the cross that he bore. I will glory, I will glory, I will glory in the cross. I boast not of words, nor tell of good deeds, for naught have I done to merit his grace. All glory and praise shall rest upon him, so willing to die in my place. I will glory in the cross, lest his suffering all be in vain. I will weep no more for the cross that he bore. I will glory in the cross. My trophies and crowns, my robe stained with sin, were all that I had to lay at his feet, unworthy.
Afternoon, everyone, and I welcome you all. Just a confirmation that our presenters are here with us. Dr. Alaisa, please show yourself. And Dr. D.
Hello, everyone.
Fantastic. Good to see you. Welcome, welcome, ladies. And the elder is here with me. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. It's a joy to have you here with us. And today we have our presenters we had last time, Dr. D, and we have the elder with us, as well as Dr. Alaisa. This week's topic is interesting. And it might sound like it applies to women, but it applies to both the boys and the girls. So we're going to have ourselves an interesting time as we look at our topic today. And the topic is marriage is not a professional qualification. It sounds almost like foolishness. Of course, it's not a professional qualification. But here we are, marriage is not a professional qualification.
So something must have happened to the voice, to the volume. Try again, madam.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
I think one of the administrators is muting people and might have muted me by mistake. So I was saying the elder is going to give us a word of prayer so that we can get started. Elder?
Shall we pray? Our Father who is in heaven, we thank thee for this day, and we thank thee for the panel, and we also thank thee for the young people who are with us today. May thy will be done and thy power be demonstrated. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Elder. So, Dr. D, marriage is not a professional qualification. What does that mean, Dr. D? I personally was brought up to prepare for my husband, to know how to cook for him, how to clean the house for him. What does this mean, Dr. D? Please talk to us a bit about what you understand by this.
Okay, thank you very much. Hello, everyone. It's really exciting to be here. I feel young, and I wish we had these lessons when we were growing up. So I will talk about, I work with people who are broken, who come with distress, depression, anxiety, parasuicide, self-harm, and I will talk a lot from those experiences, relationships that are breaking, wanting to figure out whether things are working or not. Let me start by the presentation last week. As I listened to that presentation, my heart really ached because the men were very brutal, I must say. Like the truth was painful. So stuff like, we will chew the bubble gum, but when we are done, we'll spit it out.
We're not going to marry that.
No, we are not going to marry. Why should I pay for that which is already used? I'm drawing back to this because the previous week we had spoken about what ladies want, and I got quite a blasting from some youths because they felt that we were not quite representing some youths who want sex, some girls who want sex. And I tried to explain that everybody wants sex, girls and boys, but they want it in the right platform, in the right context. And as I listened to the men saying stuff like that, and knowing what a lot of people think, or even the society, how much value we have placed in marriage, such that a young girl growing up, as you say, is preparing to be a wife, is preparing to cook for her husband, is preparing to wash and be a wife and have lots of sex. It turns out that marriage is actually not a destination. The day you get married is just day one, but there is maybe 60, 70 years of life ahead of you. And if you are preparing to catch the person to get married, you will find that there are more demands in life than just getting married to that person. And so we need to prepare for ourselves because there are a lot of other facets of life. Let me also get back to where this notion of when you get married this, when you get married that. You know, when people were growing up, we got married in our early 20s. Our parents got married in their 18s, in their teens, 18, 19, they were already married and having children. But today's children are getting married in their late 20s, 30s, even late 30s, because in the past, marriage was like the profession. There wasn't much school to go to. If you go to standard 6, that was it. And if you got married maybe to the foreman, be the foreman's wife, that was it. People were not ambitious. But now the world has become a global village. There is much out there to look forward to. And while our parents in the past were dependent on getting married, things have changed. And we need to view marriage differently, not as an end goal, but as the beginning of something.
Thank you, Dr. D. I like the statement you said. You said marriage is not a destination. And yet, you know, we grow up knowing what wedding gown we're going to wear and what the girls who are going to be part of the entourage are going to be wearing. So it sounds almost as if when we are growing up, when we are brought up for this destination, for this, this thing that if you attain it, you've arrived, you have achieved something big. Dr. Alaisa, I would want you to talk to us about some of the challenges that would befall a woman if she were to enter into marriage with this mind frame that I have arrived or I have achieved the ultimate qualification. What are some of the pitfalls that await women if they enter marriage with this type of mind frame?
Okay, thank you so much for clearing the ground for all of us here. I think one of the challenges that we have, like you both have been saying, that young girls are conditioned to aspire marriage. But unfortunately, boys are not conditioned like that. So you see, when we are playing house, like when we are doing mawumbwe, it's the girls, you rightly said, as a young girl, you picture your wedding gown. So girls are conditioned to aspire for marriage, but boys are not. So when these two get married, there's already a mismatch. We create an uneven, there's no balance, because women grow up with the preoccupation of marriage and men do not have that preoccupation of marriage. So when these two people meet, when women marry these men, the relationship is automatically uneven, because this one is looking forward to marriage and seeing that this is my end goal. So whatever then happens in this marriage, this girl is already disadvantaged. The guy does not prioritize the marriage as much as the girl does as we are growing up. So when you get into marriage, you find that there are some people who put up with all sorts of abuses in marriage. There's some people who may just, because they want to be identified with this marriage label, because for them, getting married is a measure of being a successful woman. Getting married is like an award. Getting marriage is something like, I've achieved a trophy in life by getting married. So they will do all things possible to stay married, even when the worst things are happening in that marriage. So you find people that you are experiencing an unhappy marriage. You know, marriage can be happy, marriage can be unhappy, but marriage is not an achievement. So you'll see that people no, marriage is not it's not an achievement. I think what I will call an achievement is staying married.
Okay.
That's an achievement. If people can stay married for 40 years, for 50 years, that's an achievement. But for you to say that when I get married, I've achieved something, that is not. So the challenge that girls will end up having is you are super dependent on a man, and your happiness is tied with this man. You lose your individuality, thinking that I've arrived, this marriage the one that should bring me happiness. And when you get into that marriage, you find that that happiness you thought was in that marriage is not there. Mm-hmm. And you have not, you do not have coping mechanisms of how do I make myself happy in this marriage, because you thought that it is the marriage which is going to bring, it is this man who has the keys to your happiness.
So this is interesting to me.
It becomes a challenge when you look at yes.
This is interesting to me because this is coming from a married woman. Girls out there who are still unmarried, please take note. But I'd like to go to the elder now. Elder, is it true that boys are not brought up to believe that marriage is the biggest achievement that they could ever enter into? After all, we used to play maumbwe with the boys. For every mother that was there, there would be a father who was actually a little boy. Is it true that boys are not brought up to anticipate marriage as this big achievement? Elder?
Very much. Maybe you should take note of this. Number one, it is the boys who initiate, and it is not the girls. And unfortunately, because the boys are the ones who do initiate, they appear, that is in inverted commas, not to be under pressure. And because the women are not the ones who are initiating this thing, they are the ones who then appear to be under pressure. But when it comes to marriage, I've noticed that as much as the ladies are under pressure, the guys are also under pressure to marry. But unfortunately, the boys can contain the pressure, but the ladies now cannot contain the pressure. And it appears as though the ladies are taking it as though if someone asks for their hand in marriage, he has done them a favor. Why? Because they have been promoted, they have been given a platform, they have been given an opportunity. But I believe the pressure is on both sides. Everyone, someone wants to marry, he wants to marry, someone wants to be married with whom he wants to marry. Who is initiating is like the person who is ruling the roster.
Elder, may I appeal to all of you to please mute. Could I appeal to all of you, please, to mute your gadget? Because if you do not, the administrator will mute all of us, and it will delay us in how we carry on with this program. We'll cover much less ground. Please take note when you are joining. Make sure you stay muted. We will enter into a time period when you will actually be allowed to participate and state the questions that you might have. For the meantime, please stay muted. Thank you, Elder. So Elder has made it clear that the pressure is on both sides. However, the boys appear to be handling pressure slightly better than the girls. Dr. D.
I'm refusing.
I would want you to dig a little deeper. And I'm saying Dr. D because of your background in psychology and how we operate. I have always thought that women get the raw end of not necessarily peer pressure, but societal pressure, where in India, for instance, it's a big deal if you're not married. In China, it's a big deal if you're not married. In Africa, it's a big deal if you're not married. In the States, in the UK, it's a big deal if you're not married and you're a woman. Yes, it's a big deal if you're a guy, but it doesn't seem to be as much of a big deal. What is it about society? Is society putting more pressure on the woman than it is on the guy? What's going on here?
So I want to disagree with Elder a lot. Society does put a lot of pressure on women. Have you ever heard people talking about single fathers? People talk about single mothers, and yet these children have got fathers. right? And you will find that because the woman has to wait and be asked out, the pressure is a lot because they cannot, it's as if they are not in control of the transactions there. The pressure is high on women. And you find that if a man gets to his 30s, to his 40s, if people ask him why he's not married, they will joke about it. So they might say, have you not found someone to use your money with, you know? But for a woman, you are made to feel bad about yourself. You are made to feel out of place, and you are made to feel like you don't belong. If you've noticed something, and I've noted this in many different settings, when we make presentations, you ask people to introduce themselves. Even if it's a professional presentation and you are talking about corporate strategic management, you ask people to introduce themselves. They'll say, I am Angela so-and-so, I am married, I have 3 children. I am Mavis so-and-so, I'm married, I have 2 boys. I have 2 boys and 1 girl. So women take pride in getting married and using that surname and having children, and more so having male children. It's unfortunate. It's mostly a cultural thing. People will put pressure on you to get married. Your own family will put pressure on you to get married, and people around you. So we call it the social clock. When you get to a certain age, people are expecting you to be in a certain marital status and to have children. To such an extent that even Christians will pressure you to have a child if they see that maybe marriage is not happening. That's very unfortunate. Those are societal pressures. But while on that, I'm also happy to say that we are seeing a lot of change. Number one, the societal clock has now moved. While people expected girls or even men to be married at certain ages, things have changed because, as I said earlier, we are now living in a global world. There is now more than just standard 6, grade 7 to achieve. There are degrees, first degree, second degree, master's, second master's, PhD, second PhD. There are now different careers, whereas in the past, people were focused on being a teacher or a driver or a nurse or a pilot and an air hostess. So now the world is opened, and I'm saying this not because the pressure is gone, it's still there, but I'm saying it to women out there and men who might be thinking that getting married is a state of arrival, so that you know that out there are now women who are also looking at more than just getting married and are looking at achieving more. The sense of arrival because they are married is slowly shifting, and we need to embrace that.
It sounds good, but on the ground, I have noticed that the higher up in the corporate world you go, if you're a woman, the less likely you are to be married. I don't know if I'm the only one who's noticed this, but it appears as if either men can't deal with the success of women, or women can't deal with success and marriage at the same time. But the fact that they no longer married seems to then put additional pressure on them. And this in turn has given birth to what is popularly known as the cougar. This is the moneyed woman who is able to pay the young people, the young boys, to come and have relations with her, and she pays for it. Is this because these are purely physical needs, or is there actually something that is in there in marriage that a woman actually does desire? Dr. Alaisa, would you want to take that? It seems we have lost Dr. Alaisa, so I'll give that one to the elder.
Okay, I need to come in before elder does. I want to speak about the fact that there are women, the women out there seem to be single.
Mm-hmm.
It could be a number of things.
Mm-hmm.
There are
successful women, women who are very learned, who are rising up in the corporate ladder. A lot of them less and less of them, the higher up they go, seem to remain married.
So I wanted to respond to the fact that we might have fewer successful women or women up the ladder who are not married. It's a number of things. Okay. There are some men who have also not embraced the realities of the day, who continue to want, who are unfortunately intimidated by women. But we do have some men who are confident in themselves and they don't feel intimidated by women. If anything, they give their women wings to fly. Hint, hint, girls, watch out when you're dating, whether this person is going to give you wings to fly as high as God allows you, or whether he's going to feel threatened and start, they will do it very subtly, discouraging you, making you sound like now you are too educated to relate to. They make you feel bad about
You're too educated to respect me is usually what he says.
Yeah. And yet education and success have nothing to do with respect. A respectable man will always remain respectable no matter what his level of education or his amount of money. So it's possible that these women might face challenges in getting men who can embrace that and continue to feel masculine in the face of a successful woman. But we also have, we shouldn't run away from the fact that there are some women also who might be misinformed and then start wanting to take the role of a man. I personally believe as a Christian, there are masculine roles, there are feminine roles. The Bible clearly outlines that we should respect the man. He's the head of the house. It's possible that there are some women who, unfortunately, foolishly might think that they can start running the home without consulting or without, without being in sync with their husband. It's possible. But most of it is intimidation, I suspect.
Okay.
The elder can answer the rest of the question.
Elder, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I concur. Well, there is this problem. There is a question of precedence. What happened before with the educated women that we knew? Because there are some ladies who thought because they had money, they had control. And they started doing that which they were not supposed to do. And when boys watched from afar and they saw what was happening, then they realized if it happens like this, then this becomes a problem. This is the reason why some boys would not want to go for people who are very educated. Why? Because they don't want to be made to run around. They don't want to be tossed around. So unfortunately, this must be made clear to people that education without wisdom causes problems in marriage. And as long as this education is put into people who are not wise, then you realize they overstep their parameters. So the issue about women being on top of men is not a theory. It is something that is happening. It is like when men are abused, people do not make noise. This is the reason why even when we talk of desperation, wherever boys are, as soon as they get to 30s and what have you, the AMO guys will be asking them, when are you marrying? What's wrong? Do you want us to pray for you? That pressure is there, but it is how people are managing this pressure. So mostly men will pretend nothing is happening. They are not under pressure. Why? Because they are not the ones who elope. They know the other sex, because they cannot manage their pressure, they will come running. But unfortunately, if the scenario was left as it is, you find many men begging, but we would want to get in. Unfortunately, women are ready now and they are easy to hook in. Right. So I say the precedence is there, and let's advise our women to say, if we are talking of marriage, your status must not influence the way you think.
I like the statement you said, Elder. You said education without wisdom. And you would recall last Sabbath, we were speaking about the need for a woman to be wise when going about her business. And I think we're going back to that same thing. You can't be married if you don't have wisdom. You can't be educated if you don't have wisdom without destroying yourself. Thank you so much for that. And then one of the comments that I saw was, men are actually hunters and they will go for the weaker species. How true is that, Dr. Laisa? So we are talking about educated women, and somebody says, yeah, but if I'm going to be a hunter, I'm going to hunt for the weaker species. Why would I hunt for somebody who's bigger than me, who's going to challenge me beyond the capacity I want to go? Dr. Laisa?
To go back to what the elder said about the precedent, maybe set by some educated women or successful women, that they, after attaining whatever education that they've attained, they fail to respect their husbands. To me, I think we may need to look at what causes. This may be a big subject, because for long we have had women who are not working like women, and to some extent some men have used that opportunity to abuse women. So if I've grown up in a family where my father is the one who's running the kitchen, including when we are buying cooking oil, when we are buying, I will grow up with the notion that if I grow up and if I get my money, I don't want anyone to tell me what I do with my money, because it's my father who has been ill-treating my mother. It's the way that the society has been treating women. So to the extent that when these girls when they get education and they get successful, they want to be liberated from a society which has been suppressing their mothers. Mm-hmm. So to me, I think it's not that when someone gets successful, they just want to show that they can. It would be how they were brought up, what they saw. They will not want anyone to tell them how to spend their money. Mm-hmm. So I think we may need to, it's also a societal responsibility that if a woman is not bringing anything in the home, that does not mean that she's a doormat. The fact that she's ironing, she's cooking for you, she's washing for you, she's contributing significantly to the family. But if that is treated as it's nothing, what it then means that when I get my money, I will now want to be independent. So I think what might have brought those successful educated women to want to be independent, it's how the society has treated women when they didn't have resources. And of course, it's important. I think that what the elder said, that wisdom, I mean, education without wisdom is foolishness. But it's the society, how the society is conditioned us as women, how the society is treated us unfairly. It's what will lead those people to do that. Can we say that there are no successful marriages with educated and successful women? No. We have happy marriages where both of them are successful, or even if the woman is the one who has shattered the glass ceiling and the man does not have such huge amounts of money, we still have happy marriages with those conditions. So it's all this pressure on the society, from the society. I also want to speak on the issue which the elder said, that men also get the pressure. I would weigh in on what Dr. D said, that the pressure on men is there, but on women it's more, because the names that we have, the pressures that we put on women, for someone who has come, like Dr. D said, we don't have a name for a single father, but for a single woman, we as children, we label them unfairly. We label them with names which are not nice at all. You are called a return soldier. So for that reason, you won't want to return. And for that reason, any girl will look forward to, okay, I do not want to be associated with this. This is shameful to be a return soldier, or this. I mean, not saying that it's okay to do that. So the society does not understand single women. It does not understand even divorced women, or let alone widows. It judges even widows, Ashley.
It does, as if
so it becomes
that
it then puts a pressure for the girl to get married. All they want is this attachment to get married. Because the society is judging a widow wrongly, so it's better for me to married, and I will do
Dr.
everything
Alaisa,
to get married.
your network is a
then
bit
is
bad.
wrong.
Your network is a bit patchy, Dr. Alaisa.
Oh, yes, I can
Okay.
hear me.
All right. I'll allow the elder to respond before we want to move on to the next segment, in this series. Elder?
I've always said women cry a lot, but if you go into the society and find out who is putting pressure on who, you find people are saying the society is putting pressure on us when they are putting pressure on themselves. Mm-hmm. This is the reason why I'm saying to you women, it is how we are managing these things. Because it is not us men who are saying you are returned soldiers. No. It is you women who are saying so. Mm-hmm. It is not us men who are saying, why are you not married? It is your aunt and your mother and whoever who are saying, why are you not married? So this particular perspective is not in the society. It is in you women. That's number one. Mm-hmm. And number two, like you said, Dr. Mbirir, you said, if my mother was abused, at times I want to liberate myself. Mm. But look at it from this angle. If you are oppressed in Zimbabwe, would you go and fight your liberation struggle in Mozambique? No. The problem that we are having is people are asking for liberation from people who were not oppressing them. You are now taking this war out of your family where your father was oppressing you and taking it to my bedroom where I am not oppressing you. This is the reason why now we are saying when you people are getting married, the problem is you are interpreting this thing using other societal values that have not yet been put on you. And you think this is what we think and what we feel about our women, which might be different from the men you are marrying.
Okay. Two important points that the elder brings out. First of all, he says it's women who are making life hard for fellow women, which I think is true. And then he says, why do you want to fight your war in a different country? I'm sure Dr. D has a response on this because it's got more than just what it is, what I think with my head I should be doing and what I finally end up doing. But because of time, I want us to actually go on to the next part of this. We are looking at marriage is not a professional qualification. And I think we are in agreement that marriage is not a professional qualification. It is something that you're supposed to enter into. And the greatness or the goodness of that is in the success rate and not necessarily in your entering into it. So the entering into it is not the big deal as much as the success in it. Elder, we have just said marriage is not a professional qualification. What is marriage?
I believe and I know that marriage is a union between two people and with a heavenly meaning. Basically, we all know marriage was authored by God. It was created by God to serve a godly purpose. So when people are getting married, they are getting into God's plan. And what is God's plan? God's plan is he wants the married couple to be a sermon to the world to show that love can exist where there are obstacles. One can love an imperfect person so as to personify the love that is between God and man. Why? Because the love that is between God and man is unconditional. So in marriage, it was supposed to be unconditional love. And at the same time, it was supposed to stay. And at the same time, they were supposed to be trust. Why? Because we'll be taking from Christ. So marriage is a sermon. Marriage is a calling. Marriage is a relationship that shows how heaven relates to sinners.
Whew. Nobody ever told me that when they were telling me to dream of a wedding. It sounds deep. It sounds heavy. Dr. D, let me start with you. How many of our children are we raising up to know or understand marriage for what it is in a spiritual sense?
And unfortunately, that is not the case, as evidenced from last week's discussion, where people chew and spit. That's definitely not the godly design. Society has changed a lot. You find that we are saying marriage is not a professional qualification, and we sound like we want to uphold real professions. And to an extent, yes, that's what we want to do. The reasons why are different. To begin with, when God created man and instituted marriage, he said, men, love your wife as you love yourself. The way he loved us, and he sacrificed, and he would love us even when we are sinful, right? And he instructed the woman to obey and be submissive to the man, right? The challenge that we are facing nowadays is that we find Christians, in quotes, who want a submissive wife, and yet they are not loving, they are not providing, right? And there are a number of things that make marriage go sour. We are not finding that provision. We are not finding the security that a person should have in marriage. You get married to begin with. The person who's supposed to love you, preserve you, value you until the day of marriage wants to ravage you before they marry you, and they will leave you. And then you'll be at the mercy of somebody else who is going to use that against you. So that protection, people have not been raised to value the consecration of marriage, the sanctity of marriage. That's the one huge problem. That's why, if women would have the security to know that they are going to be provided for, they would not be chasing professions that much. Unfortunately, so much happens, by design. The men may leave you and you have to fend for your children, or the men may die or may become incapacitated. So those are some of the challenges that we are getting. We've got men who are being raised today. They watch their parents themselves having polygamous relationships, having small houses, giving them fancy names, So even by our examples as parents, we are not growing our children. We are not bringing them up to value the sanctity of marriage.
Thank you, Dr. D. And it's weird because we are brought up as society to enter into marriage. So it sounds more and more like we are being brought up to enter into unholy marriages rather than holy marriages. Dr. Alaisa, I would want you to speak to the issue of how is a woman to then prepare for marriage. And I don't mean, are you going to get dressed nicely, put on makeup? How is a woman to mentally, emotionally, spiritually prepare for marriage so that it can be a spiritually successful marriage?
Okay, thank you so much. I think from what the definition that the elder gave us about on marriage, that marriage is a calling. And when you're looking at marriage, that it should be a depiction of our relationship with Christ. So if you are entering into marriage, of course, we are saying that marriage is not a professional qualification, but at the same time, we want to esteem marriage as a God-given institute. So getting into marriage, when I'm getting into marriage, spiritually, I should be connected with God. If I get into marriage without this connection with God, we cannot have this clear depiction of the marriage between Christ and the church. That will not work. So both members, the husband and the wife, should have a clear and functional relationship with God. That way, it can safeguard us. It becomes the basis, it becomes the foundation for both of us to have a small heaven, or to have a happy marriage, if both of us are clearly linked to God. So if we have a relationship with God, whether I have more money and he doesn't have money, that will not count, because I will know God will help me. If my relationship with God will help me know the expectations that God has for me in this marriage. Having more money in this marriage and I have a relationship with God, I will know that God expects me to submit. I will know that Genesis 3 tells me that your desire shall be your husband and your husband will rule over you, whether I have money or not. So the relationship with Christ is the one which is central in this relation, in marriage. And secondly, if we are going to talk about emotional preparation for marriage, I should not expect this person to make me a happy. Husband is my source of happiness. I'm deceiving myself. Because this person, if the person is not linked with Christ, he is free to do whatever he does, and I will not have that happiness. So my happiness is not dependent on this husband. Because he too, he needs grace. He also needs Christ. So if I go into a marriage, they become one. I'm getting into this relationship. I will not lose my individuality. Being one in marriage does not mean losing individuality. Because people get into marriage and they, like, maybe what we've been saying is the society that what it will make lose everything, even their thinking capacity, they will lose that. Or maybe it's the man who wants to override, I don't know, the respect or the headship. I think the headship should not demean the wife. So if I get into marriage,
Hello, Dr. Lisa.
Should not mean that I have to lose my individuality. Or number three, even it should not be, I should or not, I should just be here. Those who are in this meeting, whether you're married or not, just you're somebody who's valuable. Your esteem or success in life, your self-esteem should not be linked to marriage. But there are people who want marriage to validate their esteem. So it becomes a problem when you get into marriage, wanting marriage to validate your esteem, so thinking that if I become Mrs., I'll be someone in the society. Mrs. or not, or no Mrs., I'm somebody who's valuable. So getting into marriage, I should not get into a marriage with the notion that being Mrs. is going to add value to me. No. It's good, I'm Mrs. and whatever. It's fine. But I can still outdo that Mrs. and become doctor. And look, I will not use that Mrs. Not that I don't want to be Mrs., but that Mrs. should not be a limiting factor to me. Or should not be something that I will say it is the one to make me feel like a person. Mrs. or no Mrs., I'm still an individual. I'm still a person who is worth. And Christ died for me, whether married or not.
Okay, thank you, Dr.
So
Alexa.
you prepare spiritually. Yes.
So the two key points from there is that relationship with Christ needs to be strong for both parties, and that my self-esteem should not be based on this particular relationship with this person I'm married to, but to God. So Elder, you said a little earlier on that marriage is a calling. So it sounds like to me that means there are possibly a large number of us who may not be meant to get married. Is that true or not?
Yeah, not everybody is meant to get married. Like what Paul says, I would want all to be like me. But you also realize not all would be like Paul. So some would get married and some might not get married. Therefore, we cannot judge a person as to whether he is married or she is married. The thing is, if she is not good for the calling, if she sees she can stand up, she cannot stand up to it. She can say no to it. And it's nothing to write home about. But unfortunately, the problem that we are having is, and I also believe this is the reason why some girls believe when they get the men, they've gotten called. It is because as women, the mentality is, we are always fighting even if there's nothing to fight for. we are always racing, even if there is no race. All organizations are trying to liberate women from men, as though every man out there is suppressing the men. So by the end of the day, in the process of trying to liberate oneself, some ladies are living to prove a point that she can go out there and do things differently. When in real life, the fact that you have it wrong does not mean everyone is going to have it wrong. Mm-hmm. So the concept that we are having now in terms of marriage, it is now a fight between men and women. Mm-hmm. If you are going to have an organization today, and you say it is an organization representing women against men, I am telling you, you have a million people following you. Why? Because the fight is on even before it starts. Mm-hmm. So, and even in the Church of God, people are fighting where there is no fight. And because of the fight, everyone else wants to know, what is it that is in marriage that so many women are fighting about? And hence where we are now.
Okay. All right. Okay, Elder. Dr. D, we have seen the rise of
before you ask me a question, let me just respond to some of the things. We need to put things into perspective. We appreciate, Elder, what you are saying, that women, we are fighting a war when there's no war. It's unfortunate that there might not be war in some spaces, but there is war in some spaces, unfortunately, and that's real. Even in some Christian homes, there is war where a man who is supposed to provide, who is supposed to be respected, oppresses the woman. You are asked how much cooking oil costs, and you are given this amount. You are asked to, give an account of how you've used every single cent. So you'll find that women, after enduring so much, end up wanting to get liberated, to at least be able to buy a bottle of cooking oil by myself without having to give an account of those things. That's why, so someone is asking whether we should now esteem professions over marriages. Ideally, in God's ideal world, that's not how it's supposed to be. But in a world where a man will get married and then leave you after 30 years, 40 years, 50 years even, these men will walk away and go to Venezia. We then say, should you be persuaded to, hey, leave your job, I'm going to take care of you, I'm going to take care of the children. Why are you pursuing education? Why are you pursuing a career when I can take care of you? That was then when we had real men who could stick to the marriage until the end. Unfortunately now, very few of those men can do that. Besides cheating, besides having extramarital affairs, besides leaving you, the men can die. The men can become incapacitated. They can become ill, stroke even, and be on the wheelchair. So we now, unfortunately, need women who can be there to take care of the children when all these things happen. Because we find a lot of women who, as Dr. Eliza said earlier, who are in marriages not because they want to, not because they love, not because they are Christians, but because they have nowhere to go. They can't feed themselves. They have to ask for money for airtime. They have to ask for money for cooking oil. They have to ask for money for bus fare if they decided to know this abusive relationship is going to kill me. They have to ask for bus fare to live there. And that's also not healthy. As a woman, you need to have that sort of dignity to be able to make decisions and decisions which are good for the family, for yourself, for the children.
Thank you, Dr. D. I will have to give my question to Dr. Alaisa then.
Maybe because before you give your question to Dr. Alaisa.
If you could allow me, I'm looking at the time as well. I needed to know that, are there any words, Dr. Alaisa, that you would be able to give to the young girls who are there these days, who are very good at putting on fake hair, fake eyelashes, fake nails, and are slaying, but do not seem to have anything else that they can do with their lives other than to catch a man and get married? Any words for that particular type of women, which is definitely there out there?
Yeah. To me, I think it's a pity. It's actually a pity that we have these girls who slay with their lashes out to keep their Brazilian. When you find that even in yesteryears, we had our grandmothers who could tend for their fields. You see, a grandmother, even though they did not have professional qualifications, we are not advocating here for professional qualifications over marriage, but we are saying we had grandmothers, we had guardians, and could feed for their families. We had grandmothers, we had huge fields. Even if the grandfather was going from one home to the other where they're doing the traditional brews, it was the grandmother's responsibility to take care of the family. The grandmother, I mean, when we are looking at agro-based economies, we know that over 60 to 65% of agro-based economies are supported by women. So in previous years, where we had such economy, where our economy was largely agrarian, it's the women who were working. But now we have these girls, they cannot even make their own bed. This girl cannot even make her own bed. All she does is she when she wakes up, she cannot even make her breakfast, or let alone to make breakfast for her father before the father goes out to work. So if there are girls like that, it's such a pity. Even your grandmother has done more than you can do. Your grandmother was not educated. Your grandmother did not even get to Form 4 or Form 6, but she knew how to put food on the table. So you can do more than taking care of your nails and taking care of your lashes. Even without much education, you can learn certain skills that may not need, you are not gifted intellectually, but maybe you have certain skills that you can harness. And surely you cannot be someone who's always saying, thank you for every single dollar, every single cent. Maita basa, all the time, maita basa on your mouth. You can do better. We can do better than our grandmothers. I applaud our grandmothers, the way they took care. I mean, all these, I think, generation past, the women provided, they contributed to the economy with their fields.
Thank you, Dr. Alaisa. I can see some of you are already raising your hands now, whether by mistake or not. We shall allow a segment where questions will be allowed. We will open up this platform to questions. So for the meantime, please just wait for that. Our topic today is marriage is not a professional qualification. Elder, you had something you were itching to say a little earlier on. You can go ahead.
All I was saying is, I concur with you ladies. I believe there are some ladies who are being abused out there. I also believe there are some ladies who are getting a road deal, very honest ladies who are getting a road deal. I will ask you $1 million question. If the ladies are being abused, why are they not reporting to the police?
They
are not getting anything out of it. Why is it they are not working out of something that is not representing Christ? It is because they feel they have to keep this institution at all costs. Yes. And why would they want to keep it at all costs if it's not working? Why would they want to keep it at all costs if they are not the ones who are benefiting out of it and no one else is benefiting out of it? In real life, when we are talking of marriage, we are all supposed to be benefiting. But why is it appearing that like women are so dependent on this thing that they can sacrifice their life? Some they even take in poison. Some they even hang themselves because of this thing they call marriage. Why is that happening? Why is that happening? Is it because of men? Are they being forced by men to stay in there? What's happening?
Maybe number of people would handle that.
It's a number of things. Number one, the quick thing that we'll hear is God hates divorce. Even though the person who says God hates divorce does not also say God hates abuse. That's the number one thing. That as Christians, usually we want to address the symptoms and not the real problem. And then the other thing is what society is going to say when I move out of that relationship. We call it, we say you failed, you failed in your relationship. It's as if it's an exam and you as an individual, you fail. And yet it takes two to tango, okay? So those are some of the challenges. And we've got a lot of our women folk who thought that they are achieving by getting married and they cannot sustain themselves, they cannot take care even of their children. We've got women who, not only through divorce, but even when the man dies, at the funeral, when people look at them, they actually cry because they cannot take care of themselves, they cannot take care of their children. And yet we know the Bible does not expect us to be doormats or even people who are not productive. We hear of the Proverbs 31 woman who wakes up early, goes to bed late, makes transactions, international transactions even. We hear of Rachel, who was beautiful, but not only physical beauty, but who was able to feed, to water lots of camels. You know, it takes a lot of water for a person to, and she was not taking that water from the tap. So then there's also, you know, people when they are real abusers can actually change how you think. They will intimidate you. They will treat you with so much malice that even your decision-making becomes compromised. And I have seen beautiful, intelligent, even working women who are abused stay in abusive relationships because they sort of get into some form of limbo because of the abuse. Usually the men will tell them, you caused me to do that. It's your fault. And they are fighting hard to try and preserve this marriage that we've put on a high pedestal. So those are some of the challenges.
Thank you, Dr. D. I saw a question that says, before you go, Dr. Laisa, I saw a question that says they are failures in profession, they are failures in marriage. What makes marriage a calling? Maybe, Elder, you want to take this question. Why are we saying marriage is a calling? Because failures will happen everywhere. At work, in marriage, failure is inevitable. This is what this person is saying. Why are we calling marriage a calling?
We are not saying marriage is a calling because of the failure rate. We are saying marriage is a calling because of the source. Mm-hmm. The author of marriage says, when we are talking of marriage, we are representing the relationship that is between God and man. Mm-hmm. Therefore, when you are representing the relationship that is between God and man, mm-hmm. If you can't represent that relationship properly, then you are not called into this institution. It only requires those who can represent God. But unfortunately, people think marriage is a sexy tool. Marriage is a walk in the park where they are going out there and displaying their husbands or displaying their men. But it is not like so. It is where people are acting out the sermon. This is what the source says. So when we are talking of marriage now, unfortunately for those who go to church and those who do not go to church, marriage is a source. And the source now prescribed why the marriage was instituted. And this is the reason why we are saying it's a calling, because that is what the Bible says. People are called to represent Christ. Like what people are called to be pastors. We all preach, but we are not all pastors. Why? Because we realize we cannot take that extra mile. So I would rather say, no, I'll preach when I have time, but I cannot be a pastor full time. Mm-hmm. But when you are going into marriage now, it's like we are saying, I am now a minister of the gospel full time, representing Christ full time. But because people do not take it as a calling, this is the reason why they marry someone and they fail to represent Christ. Then they tell that person, God says I hate divorce in an institution that is not representing God.
Okay. So the elder, from what I understand him to be saying, is what you've been explaining, Dr. D, that you are abused. Your self-esteem has been slaughtered in that marriage. The elder is saying that person may not have been called for marriage because they are clearly doing a very shoddy job of representing the love that is there between Christ and the church. Dr. Laisa, you were burning to say something. Please go ahead now.
Okay, I wanted to respond to what the elder had said, why women are not maybe moving out of the marriage. Why are you not walking out of the marriage? To me, it would be like putting the blame on the victim. Because like what Dr. D mentioned, these women have been abused for so long and the society accepts it. Because if I come and I tell you that I'm being beaten or this and that, you say, no, such is life or this and that. So people would tend to suffer. So for me to say, why is the woman not walking away? It's putting the blame on the wrong person. To me, it's putting the blame on the victim, someone who has been abused for so long that they will not even have the capacity to think for themselves. The man has taken, he has abused this woman for too long, that the woman will still, so I cannot put the blame on the woman that why are you not walking out? Why are you not going to report to the police? Because even if you go to the police, sometimes it's not as easy as that the man is going to be taken by the police. It's not as easy as that, even though we now have so many platforms where we encourage women to speak out, where we encourage women to open up, but it's still not as easy because the society has conditioned us in a way that you have to accept whatever is coming from your husband. So that's why we are saying marriage is not a professional qualification. I see some comments here in the chat which are saying that. So are we esteeming professional qualifications more than marriage? No, that's not what we are. What we want to achieve with this discussion. What we want to achieve with this discussion. I mean, Dr. D and myself are people who are married. We are happily married, and we are not at all denouncing the marriage institution. The marriage institution, I think God designed it for a particular purpose. And there's nothing wrong for a young girl to aspire to get married. There's nothing wrong for a woman to aspire to get married. But for you to make it your end goal, that's the problem.
And not to have anything else for yourself, even something to fall back on if marriage does not work out, because we are seeing that marriage may not necessarily work out, and you may not be in control of things that cause a marriage to not work out. So you need to have other things that you can rely on for your happiness. You need to have a family of friends, relatives. There are some people who throw away everything, including church, including their integrity, including friends, family. They will denounce everything for the sake of getting married. But you see, once you are in, you then realize it's not a bed of roses. You need to also have other things that make you happy, other things that you can bank on, even to know that if you are abused, you need to have something to step on for you to be able to, fish yourself out of that state. Because I totally agree with some of those comments. Abuse is not good for the partners, not good for even the children. So, but if you are incapacitated because you achieved by getting married and you've got nothing else to offer, then you are in trouble. You continue to be in trouble. Simple things like knowing what the law says, for example, even knowing what the Bible says. There are some people who are very ignorant of what the Bible says about abuse, about divorce, about marriage. And they'll just hear some elder saying God hates divorce, and they'll stick in there, damaging themselves, damaging the children, because they are ignorant. So that's why we are saying, no, there is a lot other things out there besides marriage. Yeah.
So thank you, Dr. D. So we are saying marriage is not a professional qualification. It is actually a calling. And it is not everyone who is called to be married. So I am a young lady. I may not feel that I have been called to become married. How do I keep my life full and successful in a world that is expecting me to get married? But I'm not really feeling that is where I'm being led to, that I have been called to get married. Dr. D, how, as a young lady, do I handle myself? What do I do? How do I make sure that I remain true to my purpose and happy, even though society around me may be telling me otherwise?
So not just as a young lady who is not married, I want to just highlight even those who are married. There are some people who give burden to their partner to fulfill all other aspects of their lives. So let me just share with you a tool that we usually use for, maybe the host can allow me to share my screen, that we use. There are some people who come and they are so broken and they feel like they are nothing because they are not married, or maybe the man wants to go. And we invite people to look at other aspects of life. Marriage is just one aspect. There are some people who get so distressed, maybe they don't have the hips or the body that they think is attractive. But you know what, in marriage, while that's important, those things constitute a very small percentage. Sex constitutes like less than 1% of married life. In 24 hours, the amount of time that you spend on your physical body and physical stuff is very small. There is a lot of other things.
Hello, could you please mute your gadgets? Thank you very much. You may carry on, Dr. D.
So the host is not allowing me to share my screen. Okay, that's fine. So now I can share my screen. So I was saying, we should not depend on just just on the relationship for us to live fuller lives. There are a lot of other areas that we need to make sure that we are investing in. I think that's the one thing that I want to highlight. There are some people who overinvest in relationships such that, so you'll find maybe an adolescent or a young person or even a woman, a married woman, taking poison, hanging themselves. Why? Because they feel, I can't live without him. And that's not God's purpose, for you to not be able to live without another person, because he is the one who died for us and we don't need to be dying for another person. So we encourage people to make sure that they are investing in other areas of life. Invest in your career, invest in finances. While our old people had maybe Mbirir in their own fields to, even now you also need to have something that you can count on. Lest your husband dies, lest he becomes ill, lest he becomes paralyzed, lest he goes for another woman. You should not depend solely on that one person. It's not good for your health. It's not good for your own individuality. Individuality is when we are saying you can all make your own decisions and be accountable to God as an individual, because we are not going to be accountable as Mrs. So-and-so. There are some people who will live God's principles because my husband says this. And we meet this quite a lot. I remember this one woman who was 21, 2 children, and pregnant. She was pregnant with 2 children at 21. And you could see that the children were undernourished, but she had poor problem-solving skills. My husband says I should not use contraception. My husband says this. My husband says this. How much is contraception? $1. So why are you not? I don't have money. So that's what we are saying, over-investing in a human being who unfortunately may not be representing God at that time. So it's healthy for you to develop yourself personally so that you grow as an individual. It's important for you to develop yourself health-wise, to develop relationships with family. Unfortunately, we are seeing in the chat groups, women, young girls who are throwing their families away because they found a boy who is having sex with them. And they throw away family at the risk of, after listening to last week's presentations, that same person that you are throwing away your family for is going to let you down, unfortunately. So it's healthy for you to have other relationships, to have a social life, to have a positive attitude, to develop yourself wholly as an individual and not over-invest in a relationship. In fact, when you are fully developed in other areas, you come to the marriage relationship as a whole person who is not needy, who can also, you are in there for love, not in there so that you get airtime, so that you get rent and food.
Whoa, fantastic. So I see relationship only takes a small slice of a person's life. And yet we want to make it appear like it is the whole life. And Dr. D has just made it clear there that we are not only sinning against God, but we are also sinning against ourselves by putting too much focus on just that one slice that's called relationship. Elder, do you have anything to add to this pizza that's put there?
This is exactly what I've been saying, ladies. Number one, you over-invest in a relationship. You throw away even your family. You throw away even your friends. Then you call yourself a victim in this relationship. At what point does one become a victim? We are making ourselves victims and we want the world to sympathize with us. When in real life, this was an equal partnership. But unfortunately, someone decided to put everything in the basket when you realize the losses are high. So all I'm saying is, as long as the trend continues, as long as the girl child does not realize that all the other aspects of life must be taken into consideration, the girl child will take marriage as a qualification, will take marriage as an end. And by the end of the day, as soon as one gets married, that is all that has happened successfully in her life. And this is the reason why when we talk of ladies, we say, now the victim is being blamed. At what point did someone become a victim in an investment that was a 50-50 investment? Why is it that we have got someone who has got 5 brains who did not realize that this thing is no longer going where we were going?
Well, thank you, Elder. So it seems to be making it clearer and clearer to me that wisdom is needed, ladies. Wisdom in how we live our lives. There's so much more in our lives than just relationships. But the way we are currently living our lives, it's as if that's all there is to it. Our topic, ladies and gentlemen, is marriage is not a professional qualification. Dr. Alaisa, do you have any comments on the wheel of life that Dr. D has just presented? Any comments before we move away from that?
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. D, for that wheel of life. I just want to add, or not, when she was saying that maybe your husband may die or something, and in unfortunate eventuality of life may happen. To me, what I want to say is, even without that unfortunate eventuality, as a woman, you just need to do something. Whether the husband will die or not, whether the husband will go for a small house or not, you should be able to do something as a woman. Because there are some people, you see, there's someone who puts in a question in the chat saying that, what would you say to a woman who's ready to be married? And the man says, if I marry you, you have to be a housewife and stop working as long as I am alive. The reason why I'm going to work, it's not because, I'm not going to work because my husband cannot provide for me. It's not for him. It's not for him. It's for me. So whether he's there or not, it's for me. It's for me as an individual. So my working... Sorry?
I said, and do ladies know that? This is exactly what we are saying, to say it's about you. And do they know that? Do they realize that is the fight between men and women, or the fight is for self-actualization?
No, I think, you see, the challenge is, you see, the question which has been posed in this chat, this girl may get advice that, no, if you found someone who wants to marry you, it's better for you to get married. What will a job do to you? You get at some point where you will regret why you didn't get married. So if your boyfriend is saying, stop working and I'll take care of you, stop. So there are people who give such advices. And the person will just say, okay, my husband doesn't want me to work, so I'll just be a housewife. So if you cannot agree at the point of departure when you are getting married, if you're saying that stop working because I'm going to provide for you, it's not, to me, it's not about that. I don't think that Proverbs 31 woman was doing all those things because the husband was not capable. I don't think that. I go to work. Okay. I go to work for myself. Whether you are there or not, I do this for myself. Whether you leave me or not, I do this for myself. And that's why we mentioned earlier that individuality, a woman's individuality should not be taken away the day they get married. I should not, even as we are coming to become one. And it's unfortunate that the society will say when two are married, they become one, and the man is that one. So it now means that the man becomes dominant. It's wrong.
The man is that one. So you get you go to work for self-actualization and also to be productive. The men may not always be there. Ladies, please, your man may not always be there, no matter how much money he has, no matter how smart he is. That's why you also need to be there to support him. Okay. I am curious to know this man who says stop going to work. What are his intentions? The many men that we find in our therapies who stop their women from going to work, usually they have been promiscuous themselves, and now they don't trust. They think that everybody's doing it, and they think that their woman is at risk. And usually they suspect that their woman is also doing what they do. And then there are some men who are controlling, who want complete power. These are the men who tell you to leave my car keys there. I want to use the car today. Leave my car keys. When you've planned with your ladies, or you've planned to, do something with the car, he will tell you you have no car, leave the keys there. These are the women who sell the house when you don't know it, because they want to control you. They want you to be in the house, not to be influenced. They're the men who stop you from visiting your relatives, stop you from playing with your relatives, because they say they are bad influence. It's a method of controlling. It's a method of abuse where someone withdraws you and puts you in a cocoon where they can now then manipulate you, and you don't think you have no contact with the outside world. Control, and they'll know you have no money. We have men boasting, you have no money, you can't even go and report. I'll buy the policemen, I'll buy the lawyers. Where are you going to get the money from? These are your controlling women, your controlling men, and you need to be careful. It will appear as love, but it makes you incapacitated. I believe a strong man liberates his woman, makes her fly, scale the heights. That's power.
Amen to that. Amen to that. Thank you, Dr. D. And I think what's coming out clearly to me is that, ladies, marriage is not a professional qualification. And from the wheel of life that Dr. D has put up for us to see, relationship, it's noted as relationship, not as marriage, is just but a fraction of your life. Live your life to the full. Christ says, I came so that they might have life and have it abundantly. Is your life abundant if you have just that one slice called relationship and nothing else from the rest of it? It's not abundant. That's where you feel that I'm a victim, I'm abused, I'm caged up, I'm imprisoned in this relationship because you have allowed yourself to be there. We go back to the initial statement. We need to be wise in the way in which we live our lives, in the decisions that we make for our lives, ladies, because marriage, it's not a professional qualification. So I would want to open our discussion part a bit earlier, because I want our presenters, just before we close the show today, to then say some comments, and then we close. Administrator, could we open the channel for questions now so that we can have people pose their questions, their comments? Please remember, you only unmute when you have been called upon to say something, and immediately mute yourself after you have presented. Could you try and keep your comments, your questions as short as possible, because there are a lot of you who would want to say something.
And Madam Chair, there is also one thing here. When we were saying if it is not representing Christ, we cannot call it marriage. And there is a notion here from the male world, which they say the relationship between Christ and the church was so solid unto death. So by the end of the day, nobody can live. I want to clarify this thing. The Bible clearly states that Christ died for the church and not the reverse. And Christ cannot come and call for the church to commit suicide. So by the end of the day, as long as Christ comes and calls for the church to commit suicide, there is a problem in that gospel. So what we need to do is to make sure we know how Christ represented heaven when he came, even unto death. By the end of the day, it is not the duty of men in marriage to make sure women commit suicide. If ever there is supposed to be death, it's the men who is supposed to die.
But the woman should flourish.
The woman should flourish. That is the concept of marriage.
Right. Gentlemen, on this platform, I hope you heard that, because the elder, he's a married man, and he can very confidently say the woman should flourish. And here I am sitting next to him. Dr. D, you wanted to say something? Emma, I have seen your hand. Dr. D?
For the first time, I don't want to say anything.
Okay, we go on to Emma. Emma, you've got your hand up and you have been itching for a while now. Let's hear from you.
All right, happy Sabbath. Are you hearing me?
Happy Sabbath to you.
All right, thank you. My question is, actually currently I'm in Algeria and I'm 27 this year. But mostly it's like the moment I talk to my parents, my aunties, they'll be asking me, do you have someone there? When are you getting married? I'm like, for now, it's okay. I don't have that pressure, but I imagine myself when, let's say I'm living among them and you're seeing them every day and they're asking you all those things. How am I supposed to deal with such pressure? Because I will be knowing that I am pursuing something for now. I am dealing with school, and maybe after that I would want to work before I get married. But you are having your family that is pressuring you. They are expecting someone, and they are actually saying, do you want to get like old before you get married? Women by 30 or by 35. After that, when you start giving birth, there will be complications with your children. So you are here like with all this like confusion in your mind when you actually know what you really want. So how am I supposed to contain that or to deal with that? That is really my question. How am I supposed to respond to my family when it's like that?
Thank you, Emma. I will give Dr. Alaisa that question to answer. Dr. Alaisa?
Okay, I had raised my hand.
Let Dr. D answer.
Yes.
So you can answer it, Dr. D.
Yes, I want to say to Emma and a lot of young women out there, I personally have been working with lots of women, young ladies, professional ladies who are experiencing those pressures. Number one, we will not be able to change the community. You can only change yourself and how you respond to those things. Okay, if you know what plans you have with your life, you don't need to worry about the community, what they feel and what they say, because you may not be able to change them. To begin with, they don't have a vision that you have. Some of them are married in their 18s, some of them were married in their early 20s. So number one, know yourself, know what you are standing for, know where you are going. With time, the society will change. It has already started to change. I am testifying to that. There are a lot of professional women, young ladies in their 30s even, who will say, this person is not serious and I'm not standing for that. And they will break a relationship, even though they are well advanced in their years, okay? So know what you are doing, know where you are going, and never mind those people. Look around at the people who are married as well, who have been married in their 20s, in their 30s, and see what they are doing. Do you know? People just get nostalgic at the weddings and stuff, but after that, there is life. Hello. Some of them will get divorced even before they get the age that you are. Do you know that? Some people will get married after 1, 2, 3 years, they are already divorcing. They are already facing challenges. So kumanya kusiko kushika. Stand your ground. And I'm really happy to say I've seen empowered women who know what they want and they will not stand for rubbish. and they will also not be pressured by some tete who has no profession herself, who is also struggling in her marriage, and she is forcing you to get married. For what? Get married when you are ready for the right reasons, not for society.
Thank you, Dr. D. Very well answered. Anybody else who has questions? While we are waiting for more questions from the platform, Dr. Alaisa, there seems to be in some circles the belief that it's not really necessary to educate the girl child because acharorwa. How do we help girls who are in those circumstances, or how can they help themselves get out of that, should I say, vicious cycle?
I think the whole purpose of this discussion is to address some of those things where people think that it's not necessary for a girl child to be educated. So if you find it's unfortunate, or maybe there are some people who have gone through life in those circumstances, there might be people on this platform who did not get the opportunity to further their education because of their family's beliefs or because of what their family thinks about girls. If you are there, to me, I think your circumstance or your past, you should not be a prisoner of your past. If you are someone listening here and you did not get that education that you wanted because your parents believe, you should not be a prisoner of your past. I think that you can find ways and means to pursue your career if you so wish. You may start by doing maybe menial jobs whilst raising money for you to educate yourself. I think we have so many people like that. Maybe many of our mothers did not have the opportunity to be educated by their parents, but at some point, because of the vision that they had, they pursued it no matter what. I saw one post just yesterday, one lady who graduated with the MBA. She said that she got married early. She got married maybe in a very early 20s, but she's now 51. She had the MBA. She just graduated the MBA. So in a post, she was saying that even though she did not get to do a master's or your education or a career before she got married, it's that vision which sustained her, which carried her. And now she's 51. She now has a MBA. So if you have that vision, if you have that dream, you can still pursue it no matter what age you are. You can still, God willing, and praying to God to help you to find the resources. You can get the resources and pursue your dream no matter what. Even if you are now a grandmother, you can still get your PhD even if you are a grandmother. You can still, I mean, we know people, we have done their O-levels way after their children, after they finished giving birth. So you can still do that. You should not be a prisoner of your past. The fact that your parents did not send you to school should not be limiting you today. You can even choose to be a helper, a house helper, while you're raising money for you to pursue your dreams.
Okay.
So that should not limit you.
The idea is to keep it real, to make sure that you pursue what you can for yourself by yourself, and not necessarily just rely on the parents who may not have your vision or your dream. I see Ntanto, yes, I don't know if I got that name correctly. Tando.
Okay.
Yes.
I wanted to comment on the comment section. There were ladies who were saying Elder is saying we are the victims. I wanted to comment on the victims. Once people are in a marriage, they are not victims. It's a partnership. So just as much as you may become the victim, you should know what has made you to become the victim. I think this lesson is also an empowerment. With these lockdowns, our sisters will be in trouble because they'll be expecting marriage from people who are not prepared to be married. I think the situation has changed. It's now more important that our ladies get more empowered and they don't cry, they don't become the victims. Actually, we're now in an age of matriarchy where our ladies should be the ones who are empowered. They're the ones actually who can make it happen. So I think this idea of thinking that as ladies, they turn out to be the victim is wrong. Actually, now the boys are now the victim. Considering the economic crisis and these lockdowns, boys are at a more crisis than the ladies. So I think it should empower our ladies.
Thank you, Ntando.
Thank you. All
right. Elder, do you have any comment to that?
Yes, and as a follow-up to that, ladies, look back. Our mothers, some of our mothers, they were married to people who were not responsible at all. But many people will tell you because of their mothers, they went to school. Because of their mothers, they had food on the table. Why? Because the ladies did not take themselves to be victims. They realized there was no man in this house. I need to stand up. I need to walk talk. So by the end of the day, if you have the whole world sympathizing with you, when you are seated and being destroyed, it will not make a difference. What has to make a difference is when things change, you need to stand up and say, this is not the marriage that I came for. Now I am here to create a world that I represent. Then you create the world that you represent within that failing institution. If it cannot happen in there, you know what to do.
Okay, thank you, Elder. Eleanor, your hand is up.
Yes, afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, sure, thanks. My question is almost similar to this aspect of matriarchy. We seem to be perpetuating a group of men who, if they are not intimidated about a woman's status, they are going to get married to that woman, but they are going to sit and do nothing. You see, but at the same time, they also want to be respected at the end of the day. That woman is not going to keep quiet if you are ill spending that money that they are working. So we can't perpetuate a series of men who are doing nothing when they are the head of the family. The woman is coming in as a helper. That's why we are emancipating the woman, that you don't just sit. But now it's like emancipating the woman is giving the men power to sit down. They are backing down to say, no, if you are going to work, so what's the point of me going to work? They would rather stay at home and do nothing. So how are we addressing that part?
Can I just add,
thank you very much, Eleanor.
Onto that, I want to add on to that question, onto that challenge. So there are men who will now sit back and make you feel bad for going to work. Then there are men who will demand certain things. There are things that that need to be done maybe in the household. So men will demand for you to cook all the meals, like do all the dishes, do all the cleaning, do all the washing and ironing, but they don't do the garden, they don't clean the car, they don't do that, the manly stuff. We need really to embrace the times and see. I thought about this question that Eleanor is bringing, because I was giving a presentation to young boys, like in their young boys, secondary school boys, and they were saying, when I come back at home, my wife should cook. You know, she should do everything. Even if I'm at home, if she goes to work, she should come back and cook lunch for me. And I was like, oh my goodness, where is this coming from? Yeah, we need to rethink. If you need a wife who is going to be supporting you, who is going to be helping you, there are a number of things that need to be to shift there. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Dr. D. Thank you, Eleanor. Stay tuned. Make sure you stay tuned next week, because the topic next week is these guys are lazy cowards. So I think we'll be looking in greater detail to the question you've just raised, because the issue of how we are also raising our boys is then put under focus. Dr. Laisa, did you want to say anything to Eleanor, or you're okay with what Dr. D had said?
I'm okay with what Doctor is saying. Yes.
Okay,
I'm okay with
thanks.
what Dr. D said, and I'm also thinking it can be addressed next week. But there's someone who wrote on submission in the comments. I'm still trying to see. He's saying, what does it mean for a woman to be submissive according to the Bible? What does it mean to submit to the husband? Because I think the person raised the question when there's a time we spoke on it. I just want to say that submission does not mean, I think we take submission in a wrong way. Submission does not mean that a person is leaving their brains maybe at the altar. Because even when our relationship with God, we submit to God, but still God says, come, let us reason. God still expects me to have brains which are working, even if I'm submitting to God. So submitting to God does not mean that my brain has stopped working and that the husband is the one who's doing everything for me. So I think we get it wrong when we are saying that if I'm now submissive to my husband will detect whether I want to work or not, whether I should work or not, whether I should just stay at home and do that. I think that's no longer submission. I think that will be something else, not submission. I submit to God, but still God asks me, come, let us reason. God gives me a chance to say what I want. God gives me a chance to talk to him. So in a husband and wife relationship, submission does not take away the voice of the woman. It does not mean that I cannot say this, okay, let me earn my money, let me do this. No, that becomes oppression, not submission. If you now want to be a husband who's controlling, who's saying you cannot work, who's saying if I'm telling you not to work, if I'm telling you to do this, that's no longer submission. I submit to God, but God still gives me opportunity to say things to him. And God gives me opportunity to use my brain.
Thank you, Dr. Alaisa. Tatenda, your hand has been up for a while now. Let's hear from you. Tatenda, you're on mute.
Tatenda wrote the question here. Maybe if he or she cannot speak.
Tatenda has not unmuted.
And the question is being answered in reverse. If it's submission, if it's not abuse, what it is, what is it then? So if you look at the verse closely, it says, submit to your husband in the Lord. Okay, Tatenda, you can speak if you are able to speak.
Okay, I hope you can hear me now.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I wanted to respond to what has been said at the beginning of the discussion. I heard people saying men are intimidated by successful women. The thing is, it's not really intimidation, but what happens is there are women, not many of them, but there are women whom when they become educated and successful, they tend to neglect this part of submission and things like respect. They neglect that side. So men tend to avoid when they see signals of maybe certain women who want to neglect that side. Because most men, they don't want to be crybabies, whereby you get married and you are busy complaining about women not respecting you and all that. So men tend to avoid when they see certain signals, but it's not really intimidation. And also I wanted to mention the issue of pressure. Yeah, pressure is there for both girls and boys. Because even men, we are being asked, when are you getting married? Even by the girls themselves, they are even putting pressure on us. So it's not really about the girl child. Even the boys, they also feel this pressure. And then the third thing and the last one, I feel like we have a lot to blame on the society. But are there not positive things that we can learn from the society? Because there's a notion of saying everything negative is attached to society and is attached to maybe being African. But is there not something positive that we can learn from our culture? Because at the end of the day, there are people who are strongly believers of this African culture, and they tend to see Christianity as an anti-African thing. and they tend to see maybe the modern way of doing things is anti-African. So maybe if we can pick up the positives from what we have been doing in our African culture as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Tatenda. Elder, you want to comment?
Yes, basically, this is the reason why we are talking about these things. We are talking of these things because if we remain silent, people will believe this is the norm. They will believe this is the tradition. Even in our African tradition, this was not supposed to happen. But now that it has happened and everybody is quiet, people, they believe it is Christian to suffer in silence. And the people believe it is submission to suffer in silence. And the people believe God is not going to approve if I say I'm having a raw deal here. This is the reason why we are talking about it. Otherwise, we are not saying the past has brought negatives on us, but we are saying this pressure at times was coming from our siblings, was coming from our seniors, was coming from our aunties and our tetes and what have you. So by the end of the day, what we are trying to say now is every person is responsible for her destination. And by the end of the day, you must not cry because I said this. You need to know where you are going and how you are supposed to get there so that you don't get abused in the future. But otherwise, what we hear what you say.
Prince there is saying, in the answer to Tatenda, is saying, what then is submission? Mm-hmm. We need to read the verse carefully. It says, submit to your husband in the Lord. Even children, obey your parents in the Lord. Mm-hmm. The Bible knew, God in his wisdom, knew that there are some parents who are going to be wayward, who may force you to do things that are not right in the Lord's, according to the Lord. Even husbands, they are there. And so you are not just to submit passively, throw away your value that is bestowed upon you by God, because some man is asking you to submit and throw away what is valuable. So the key is, the key words there, Prince, is in the Lord, right? So you need to ask yourself, because there are some people who do things and say, this is what my husband wants. They would dress inappropriately and attribute it to what my husband wants. This is what my husband wants. No, we don't do things that our husbands want. As Elder says, we each are going to be answerable to the Lord, right? So your husband is not going to answer for you. Whatever you are doing, if it's harmful for you, if it's harmful for you, who is God's temple, or if it's harmful for the children and it's not in the Lord, then it's not right and it needs to be questioned. There is a lot, Tatenda, that we value in our culture. Our elders, right? You know, so mother had control over certain things. Unlike some people now who want to, in the name of submission, want to have control over someone. You would find that the men in our tradition, they would respect the woman of the house and, consult her when they wanted to do things. That's what we are simply saying, and Christianity is the same. Submission is respecting your husband. You are supposed to be planning things together. He will have the final word, as long as it is in the Lord. Then, and as someone said, if someone is representing Christ for real, Christ calls you for a dialogue. He will not make sweeping decisions without consultation, and he does not feel offended when you've got an opinion, and you respect that opinion and you negotiate. That's what Christianity is all about. It's not about control. God does not force us. That's why he asks us to make decisions.
Okay.
And before you say anything, do you realize also, when people are out there not attending church, even drinking, they are on separation with Christ. He accepts that there is separation. And by the end of the day, when the time is ripe, they are going to come back. They are mending issues and they are trying to create a relationship. He does not force people to be there when spiritually they are not there.
Okay. Dr. Laisa, I want you to attend to the first part that attender spoke to. He said, it's not that men don't like successful women. It's just that the women give off a certain vibe, a certain something that the men will be able to tell that I can't put up with this. My question, Dr. Laisa, is, maybe if you could answer it in reverse, is, do men who are not living their proper purpose, who are not the head, who are not where God meant them to be, who are not yet the priest, do they not in turn give off a certain vibe that may be repulsive to a woman who is doing well? Dr. Laisa.
Yes, thank you so much for pointing that out, because I think if we are functioning in our God-given roles, we should not be intimidated. I'm glad you say that they are not intimidated, but is this the vibe that women will present? Like I mentioned earlier, that what causes this vibe to come out maybe is the way in which the society has set us up. And in turn, if you are a husband and you are not, if you are carrying out your God-given responsibility, if you are leading your family, if you are providing for your family the way God intended it to be, you would not be intimidated by a woman. You would not, there would be even no room for this woman to show you that negative vibe, because you are doing your God-ordained role. So let us just function in our positions that God desires us to function in. Like, I like the way that Elder has put what marriage is in the beginning. He said marriage is a calling, and I saw some people questioning, why is it a calling? Why is it? Because we want to represent Christ in this union. So if you are doing, you as a man, do your role, provide for the family. When Adam was created, God gave him the garden to tend, to look after the garden. So if you are doing all this, I don't think you'll be having Eve by your side who's helping you in that garden should be intimidating. I don't think that should be intimidating. So take up your God-given responsibility, provide for the family. And I also want to answer the question that has been asked even on Facebook on then what is submission? My definition, which I've put on submission, is maybe submission is a calling of a wife to honor and affirm her husband's leadership and to help carry it through according to her gifts. I'll put the emphasis on her gifts. So if you are submitting to a husband, this is a calling for a wife to honor, to affirm your husband's leadership. So this leadership, if I'm submitting to you, I'm submitting to your leadership. I'm honoring your leadership. I'm affirming your leadership. So be in your rightful position of leadership, taking the notes from Christ. And as I'm doing this according to my God-given gifts. You are not to stifle my God-given gifts as I'm submitting to you, because I'm affirming your leadership through the gifts that God gave me. So to me, that is what submission is. I'm affirming and honoring your leadership as a husband through the gifts that God gave me. So as a husband, don't stifle my gifts. Allow me to use my gifts as I'm honoring your leadership.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Laisa. I will only allow the last two that I can see on my screen right now. That's Mbirir, Russ, and Tariro. Mbirir, you go first. And then if you could just summarize your comment or your question, because we are fast running out of time. Mbirir?
Happy Sabbath.
Happy Sabbath to you.
Allow me to assume that you are preaching to the converted, in other words, the empowered women already, and ask this question. There are women who don't have the self-drive for self-actualization, and we find it actually very difficult to do with them. Like maybe, so my question to the elder would be, how do we as guys, I'm dating this girl, but she doesn't have the self-drive to be her own person. All she says is, I will support your dream, but what do you want to do as a person yourself?
Thank you, Mare. The elder will attend to your question.
You see, there's a problem. We have ladies like that. There is one thing that they don't realize. Some of them believe that is submission, when in real life, that's the boring aspect of such type of women. What women do not realize is men want to be challenged. Men want to, you see, it's not like when you come home, you say, let's turn left. He said, I was thinking like so. Let's turn right. I was also thinking like so. We need to bend this house. I know I was also thinking like so because you are the men here. We need men, women who can stand up and say, if we do things this way, this is what is going to happen. If we take this route, this is what is going to happen. So by the end of the day, when you have such a lady, what you need to do is to help her see that she needs to stand up as a person representing Christ in this particular environment. Remember, she's there to help me. The reason why she's there to fill in that gap, the Lord realized that I cannot do everything on my own. So I need support. This is a board meeting. When I sit with my wife and discuss issues, it's a board meeting. And imagine in a board meeting where you sit and it's only the chairperson who is saying everything, and whatever he says is what is going to happen. Then there's no need for a board meeting. So when you have a woman like that, you need to empower her. If she does not want to be empowered, leave her for some people who think like her.
Yeah, those who want a docile woman, yeah, then they can. That one was
not a submissive woman, Dr. D, but a docile woman. Please check your dictionary. There's a difference. Tariro? Tariro, if we could hear from you.
Okay, I hope you guys can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, thank you. So I think my question goes to what was said earlier on before. And apparently psychology says that we tend to fix our parents' mistakes in our marriages and stuff like that. And I think this aspect was touched upon like earlier on. And so we end up having people who bleed on people who didn't cut them. Which is what Elder was basically saying, that, you now want to maybe fix like, societal errors that you encountered in your childhood, in your own marriage as well. So I think perhaps my question is directed to Dr. D. Please talk to us about that, about childhood traumas and how they basically affect how people act in marriages, trying to fix like their parents' mistakes in their own marriages and stuff like that. Yeah.
Thank you, Tariro. So it goes in two ways. Usually when something happens negatively, we either want to rewrite that script because that's all we know. If we knew that father makes all the decisions and he chairs the board by himself, it happens even in organizations where someone chairs the board by himself and people know that it's no use making contributions, so they will keep quiet. So usually some people actually perpetuate that behavior. They will carry what was happening in their families and think it is the ideal. Then there are other people who will then want to correct. And usually when you go out there and you want to correct errors, maybe there is no error here where you want to correct, you are saying bleeding on people who didn't cut them, or fighting your war in Zambia when the battle is actually, the problem is here in Zimbabwe. So we do face those problems, and usually it's helpful to introspect, to really figure out, why do you have this desire to have a woman submit to you? Are you trying to fight a battle that your father was battling? I want to agree with someone who said earlier that some women will have this vibe of control, of wanting to not be submissive. That's true. It doesn't mean that it's every woman who's going to be honorable and still be submissive when they are emancipated. It's unfortunate we do have women who are not good representatives of who the church should be. So yes, we can have someone overdoing things because they are trying to protect themselves, trying to protect themselves from the trauma that they suffered, or they themselves become traumatizers. Like they become abusers as well because they saw it happening and they learned from the best.
Thank you very much, Dr. D. Thank you, everyone. As I alluded to earlier on, those two were my last questions that I was taking because of our time. Dr. D, Dr. Laisa, I'll give you each a minute to just finalize your thoughts for this program. Meanwhile, we listen to the elder. He has some words for us.
The issue of submission has been topical. I am going to read from the book of Ephesians, the 5th chapter. I'll read the 21st verse and the 22nd verse. The 21st verse says, submitting yourselves one to another in the fear of God. This is what Paul says. When Paul spoke of submission, he did not speak to submission as one way. The first component of the verse says submitting yourselves one to another. But unfortunately, yes, unfortunately, when men speak, they only start from the 22nd verse, which says wives submit. So by the end of the day, we cannot read verse 22 without reading verse 21. So by the end of the day, what the Bible is saying is when God says women submit to men, it does not say men will always be right. It assumes that men read verse 21, where he is supposed to be submitting one to another. Therefore, there are times when women have effect. This is when men should submit. And there are times when a woman does not have effect. A woman should submit. But in issues where there is a tie or people cannot agree, but it's in the Lord. Like, for example, we want to give our sister money as free monies. One says $1, the other says $50. Then this is where the Bible says woman should then submit to say, okay, my husband, we are going to say $50 because this is what you have said. But in terms of spiritual issues, we submit one to the other.
Thank you, Elder. Dr. D, I shall give you the first part of your final words.
Thank you. Yeah. I just want to leave you with a skill that you can use when you find that you are getting pressure from a lot of people. If somebody called you, if you saw a person who is mentally ill, and that person says to you, if you see a person who is picking food from the bin and he says to you, your hairstyle is not nice, you don't take offense because you can see that this person is mentally unwell. Each time you give the community, the society, power over your decisions, say like Emma, you've decided to pursue a course before you get married and you want to get married at 33 and you get offended by your tete or your mining or your sister or your friend, it means you are esteeming what they think more than what you have decided for yourself. I don't know if that makes sense. It means you are giving more value to their opinion and discarding all the common sense that you have for yourself. So we need to take everything with a grain of salt, step back and see whether this still stands, whether you, in your right mind, you still think what they are making are right, so that you are not still bowing down to pressure and to people who should know better.
Thank you, Dr. D. Dr. Laisa?
Okay, thank you so much. For me, my parting words, marriage is still an honorable institution, and we do have happy marriages. I know that because I'm in one. And what I want to say to the young girls is don't get into marriage thinking that someone is going to complete you or making it your end goal.
Wait.
Pursue your career. Use your talents. Do what God, achieve what God created you for. And to the young guys who are on this platform, support the women in your lives, whether it be your sisters, your cousins. If you're going to get married, support them to be what God intended them to be. God created us for a purpose, and that purpose should be fulfilled, married or not married. And we need husbands, we need brothers who can support the girl child to flourish and to use their gifts that God gave them. I think that's what I have to say.
Thank you, Dr. Lisa. Elder?
Today, you see, there is one thing that I've always watched. Women want men to change so that they become assets in their lives. It's not going to happen like that. Everyone else must do his or her own change. So by the end of the day, we mustn't be crybabies forever. We mustn't surrender our lives to other people forever. And by the end of the day, like I've said before, submission is not a surrender of conscience. We are still accountable to God. So as we are making these choices, let us always remember, we are going to give an explanation before God as to the success of the institution. So we need to put our thought into it and not go into it as victims, not go into it as beggars, not go into it as people who are benefiting, but go into it as equal partners. If there is someone out there who does not want to give you your 50% share, why don't you find some other partners? Otherwise, this discussion will continue forever and we are not going to get results. Let's be practical. Let's be honest. Let's move on. We need to be saying the truth and living according to the truth.
Thank you, Elder. Thank you, Dr. D. Dr. Laisa. Final words from me are from Proverbs 4, verse 7. Wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore, get wisdom. Be it you are a lady or you are a gentleman, get wisdom. It's the principal thing. Our topic next week is these guys. They are lazy and they're cowards. Please tune in next week so that we may be able to take you through that particular program. Meanwhile, God bless and have a continued happy, blessed Sabbath. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. God bless you.